That expensive meal sitting in front of you isn't culinary art. It's a meticulously engineered, microwaved lie, and you are walking blindly into a legal heist. Watch until the very end to uncover the dark, rotting secret the restaurant industry is desperately hiding on your receipt. Have you ever felt your stomach drop into an endless void, a sudden cold sweat forming on your forehead, while your hands physically tremble as you stare at a piece of paper? It is a visceral, terrifying sensation, one you would expect after receiving a medical diagnosis or a foreclosure notice. But no. This heart-stopping dread is happening right under the bright, ambient lights of a neighborhood restaurant, and that piece of paper is just a dinner receipt. You look at the astronomical number printed at the bottom, and for a split second, you question your own sanity. You wonder if you have just been legally robbed in broad daylight. If you have been filming these moments in your mind, capturing that sheer panic and post-meal devastation, let me tell you right now, you are not crazy, you are not cheap, and you are definitely not alone. This is no longer an isolated incident of bad luck. It is a meticulously engineered psychological and financial trap waiting for you at every corner. Before we uncover the dark, rotting core of today's dining industry and expose exactly how they are legally siphoning your hard-earned money, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support is the driving force that allows us to keep peeling back the curtain and bringing these hard-hitting truths to light. Credit Card Payoff Plan US warmly welcomes you to a conversation that millions are silently having in their cars on the drive home from a supposedly nice evening out. Let us look at the cold, hard reality of what dining out has become. I remember a time, not so long ago, when going to a restaurant on a Friday night felt like a genuine reward. It was a small, well-deserved luxury, a sanctuary where you could wash away the exhaustion of a brutal work week. You paid for the comfort, the culinary craftsmanship, and the brief escape from reality. Today, that entire concept has been violently inverted. Dining out has mutated into a crippling financial burden that comes with a complimentary side dish of overwhelming, paralyzing regret. You walk through those doors with a spark of excitement, but by the time you swipe your card, your face is flushed with anger, and you spend the rest of the night lying awake in bed, relentlessly cursing yourself for being so foolish. We are currently living in a profoundly insulting paradox. Restaurant tycoons and corporate food conglomerates are constantly broadcasting the same tired narrative, crying wolf about inflation, skyrocketing rent, and supply chain nightmares. They weaponize these buzzwords to justify charging you absolute premium prices. But here is the tragic irony. While the prices on the menu climb into the stratosphere, the actual quality of the food and the soul of the service are in a terrifying freefall, plummeting straight into a bottomless abyss. The steak is shrinking, the pasta is a flavorless mush that tastes like absolute nothingness, and the staff treats you with a level of chilling apathy that makes you feel like an unwanted intruder. I am not sitting here pouring my heart out just to complain about the cost of living. This video was born out of sheer necessity, meant to serve as a megaphone for the millions of everyday people staring at unjustifiable receipts. Together, we are going to rip off the glamorous mask of the modern restaurant industry and expose the ugly, decaying machinery underneath. We are going to find out exactly what kind of garbage they are forcing us to swallow while holding our wallets hostage. To truly understand how we are being swindled, we must first look down at the plates placed in front of us, where the most insidious deception is hiding in plain sight. There was a golden era of dining where entering a restaurant meant you were about to consume something you could not easily replicate at home. You were paying for the hours of simmering, the complex layering of spices, and the pure, unadulterated passion of a chef who took immense pride in their craft. Today, that artistry has been largely replaced by corporate efficiency and a ruthless race to the bottom of the supply chain. What we are witnessing is the death of the scratch kitchen. When you sit down at a trendy, dimly lit bistro and order that $35 chicken dish, you are operating under the assumption that it was carefully prepared just for you. The agonizing truth is that a staggering number of modern restaurants have essentially become reheating facilities. They rely heavily on massive food service distributors, purchasing pre-cooked, vacuum-sealed bags of meats, frozen appetizers, and commercially manufactured sauces that come in plastic buckets. They take these factory-made components, toss them into a deep fryer or a microwave, arrange them artfully on a beautifully glazed ceramic plate, sprinkle a garnish of microgreens on top, and charge you a 200% markup. You are no longer paying for culinary excellence. You are paying for the aesthetic of dining. You are funding the interior designer who picked out the exposed brick and the Edison bulbs, while the actual food you ingest is fundamentally indistinguishable from a microwave dinner. And as the quality plummets, the portions continue to magically shrink. It is a phenomenon so common it feels like a dark comedy. You order a premium steak, and it arrives looking like a glorified appetizer, accompanied by exactly 3 asparagus spears and a single smear of pureed potatoes. The industry executives call this portion control and frame it as a health-conscious initiative, but we know exactly what it is. It is shrinkflation at its most arrogant. They are insulting our intelligence, assuming we will not notice that we are paying double for half the amount of food, so long as it looks good on a social media feed. The profound sadness of taking a bite of a $40 meal only to taste bland, uninspired, mass-produced mediocrity is a uniquely modern heartbreak. It leaves you feeling empty, both in your stomach and in your spirit, because you realize that the transaction was never about feeding you. It was entirely about extracting maximum revenue while providing the absolute minimum viable product, leaving you to mourn the loss of what dining out used to represent. But the betrayal we experience on the plate is only half the tragedy, as the sickness infecting this industry has completely eroded the human element of dining. Hospitality used to be a sacred contract. When you walked into an establishment, you were treated as a guest, welcomed into a space where the primary goal was to ensure your comfort. Now, stepping into a restaurant feels like walking onto a factory assembly line where you are nothing more than a metric to be processed and dismissed. The warmth of human connection has been systematically replaced by cold, transactional efficiency. You are greeted not with a smile, but with a frantic host staring at an iPad, calculating exactly how fast they can turn your table. You are ushered to your seat and immediately instructed to scan a peeling QR code stuck to the table, forcing you to squint at your phone screen instead of engaging with the environment. The menu is no longer a physical guide presented by a knowledgeable server. It is a digital maze on a screen you already spend 12 hours a day staring at. When a server finally does approach, the interaction is often jarringly brief and laced with a subtle undercurrent of impatience. I am not blaming the frontline workers, who are often chronically overworked, severely underpaid, and stressed beyond their breaking point by management. I am condemning the broken system that pits us against them. Servers are trained to upsell aggressively, pushing you to order the most expensive cocktails and the highest margin appetizers, transforming what should be a guided culinary journey into a high-pressure sales pitch. Once your food is dropped off, you become a ghost, practically begging for a refill of water or a napkin. Yet, despite this glaring lack of attention, the tipping culture has simultaneously spiraled out of control. The moment of payment has become a psychological standoff. The tablet is spun around, presenting you with default tip options of 20, 25, and even 30%. You are socially engineered into feeling a crushing wave of guilt if you select anything lower, practically subsidizing the restaurant owner's payroll out of your own pocket for service that was mediocre at best. You leave feeling completely unvalued, realizing that in the eyes of the modern restaurant, you are not a valued patron to be cared for, but merely an annoying obstacle standing between them and your money. The soul of hospitality has been hollowed out, leaving behind a sterile, hostile environment where genuine care has been entirely replaced by a desperate, palpable greed. While you swallow the bitter pill of a hollow dining experience, the true trap is sprung the moment that little black leather booklet is dropped onto your table. This is where the modern restaurant industry executes its masterclass in psychological and financial extortion. We are all familiar with inflation. We see it at the grocery store and the gas pump. We expect a modest increase in the cost of a meal. But what is happening on these receipts is not a reflection of inflation. It is opportunistic price gouging disguised by a labyrinth of deceptive junk fees. You look past the exorbitant baseline cost of the entrees, and suddenly, you are navigating a minefield of fine print. There is a 4% kitchen appreciation fee, a 3% wellness mandate, a 5% supply chain surcharge, and a fee simply for using a credit card. These establishments have fractured the basic cost of doing business and weaponized it against the consumer. Instead of honestly raising their menu prices, which would rightfully scare away customers, they lure you in with a false sense of affordability, only to ambush you at the very end of the night when you are a captive audience. It is a bait-and-switch tactic that borders on the predatory. They are essentially outsourcing their overhead costs, forcing the customer to directly manage their employee benefits and operational expenses. It is infuriating because it strips away your agency. When you sit down for a meal, you enter into an unspoken agreement. You order food at a listed price, you receive service, and you pay accordingly. Now, you are forced to be a forensic accountant just to figure out why a simple dinner for two somehow escalated to the cost of a domestic plane ticket. This isn't just about the money, it is about the profound lack of respect for the consumer. They know that by the end of the meal, you are too exhausted, too socially conditioned, or too embarrassed in front of your dining companions to cause a scene and argue over an ambiguous $6 fee. So, you grit your teeth, you sign the receipt, and you absorb the financial blow. The industry relies entirely on our silent compliance. They bank on our desire to avoid conflict, exploiting our decency to line their corporate pockets while gaslighting us into believing that this new, hyperinflated reality is somehow normal and justified. It is a relentless financial drain that turns what should be a joyful celebration into a source of deep, lingering financial anxiety. Recognizing this systemic extortion is painful, but it is also the very catalyst we need to break free and take back control of our lives and our wallets. For too long, we have been conditioned to believe that dining out is the ultimate metric of a life well lived, a mandatory ritual for celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, or simply surviving the week. The marketing machines have convinced us that we cannot possibly recreate that magic at home, that we need their overpriced ambiance and their reheated food to feel special. But the moment you see the illusion for what it is, the spell is broken. You are not a hostage to this industry. You have the absolute power to walk away from the table. The awakening begins when we stop equating the swiping of a credit card with the creation of a meaningful memory. We must rediscover the lost art of the home kitchen, not as a chore, but as an act of rebellion. Imagine taking the $150 you would have spent on a disappointing, rushed restaurant meal and investing it at a local butcher or a farmer's market. You can buy the highest quality, premium ingredients, a beautifully marbled steak, fresh, vibrant vegetables, an excellent bottle of wine, and still have money left over. Cooking at home, inviting friends over, and setting your own table allows you to reclaim the soul of hospitality that the restaurants have abandoned. You dictate the pace, you control the quality, and most importantly, you foster genuine human connection without the ticking clock of a host trying to flip your table. It is about shifting our mindset from passive consumers waiting to be served to active creators of our own experiences. We have to stop funding an industry that views us with such blatant contempt. Every time we refuse to pay a ridiculous junk fee, every time we choose to host a dinner party instead of making a reservation, we are casting a powerful vote with our dollars. We are sending a clear, undeniable message that we will no longer tolerate being financially abused in exchange for mediocrity. This is not about never eating out again. It is about raising our standards and demanding respect. It is about protecting our hard-earned money and realizing that the most spectacular, unforgettable evenings do not require a reservation, a QR code menu, or an extortionate receipt. Thank you for joining me in this critical conversation today. Stay sharp, guard your peace, and never let anyone convince you that you have to pay a premium just to be treated with basic human dignity. The modern restaurant industry has masterfully engineered an illusion, convincing us that we are paying for culinary artistry and genuine hospitality when, in reality, we are funding a corporate machine designed to extract maximum profit for minimum effort. What was once a sacred space for human connection and gastronomic delight has devolved into an assembly line of microwaved meals, shrinkflation, and impersonal service masked by trendy aesthetics. We are rushed through our meals by stressed workers, forced to navigate digital menus, and ambushed by a labyrinth of deceptive junk fees and inflated tipping expectations that prey on our social conditioning. It is a system built on psychological extortion, outsourcing overhead costs directly onto the consumer while delivering an increasingly mediocre product. However, recognizing this widespread deception is the ultimate catalyst for change. The realization that we do not need to subject ourselves to this financial and emotional drain empowers us to break the cycle. By walking away from the extortionate receipts and manufactured ambiance, we can reclaim our joy and our wallets. Rediscovering the lost art of home cooking, investing our hard-earned money in high-quality local ingredients, and hosting our own gatherings allows us to restore the true essence of hospitality. We transition from being exploited, passive consumers to active creators of our own meaningful experiences, proving that the best meals and memories are forged not through exorbitant restaurant bills, but through genuine connection and self-respect. True value and genuine human connection cannot be purchased through artificially inflated, transactional experiences. The modern dining industry has commodified our desire for celebration and connection, selling us a hollow, overpriced aesthetic at the expense of our financial peace and dignity. The profound realization here is that our joy, our memories, and our sense of community are not dependent on corporate establishments or societal pressures. We hold the ultimate power to define what a valuable experience is, and true luxury lies in authenticity, intentionality, and respect for our own time and resources. Audit your dining habits. Take a hard look at your recent restaurant receipts. Identify the junk fees, upcharges, and inflated costs to fully understand what you are actually paying for versus the actual quality of the food and service you received. Host instead of reserving. The next time a milestone or weekend arrives, skip the reservation. Use a fraction of that budget to buy premium ingredients, like a great steak or fresh seafood, from a local market. Invite friends or family over to cook and dine together at your own pace, free from time limits and hidden fees. Vote with your dollars. Refuse to patronize establishments that utilize deceptive pricing models, mandatory junk fees, or aggressive upselling tactics. When you do choose to eat out, intentionally support honest, transparent, family-owned local businesses rather than corporate chains. Reframe the home kitchen. Stop viewing cooking as a chore. Treat it as an act of rebellion and a creative outlet. Invest time in learning a few signature dishes that rival restaurant quality, turning your own dining room into the most welcoming space you know. What is the most ridiculous hidden fee or most disappointing dining experience you have encountered recently? Please share your story in the comments below so we can all discuss and compare our experiences. If you found this perspective valuable, please hit that subscribe button. Your support truly motivates me to keep exposing the truth and creating more eye-opening content for you.